I'm just joining you from the comfort of home. You're probably having a comfy day inside too because it's getting colder outside. But we're going to read chapter 26 of Prince Jen. And remember that last time Prince Jen had been put into the king. He had the king around his neck and he was struggling to get out of it. With this chapter, it is called Stern Teacher, Marvelous Dreams, Reflections in a Puddle. And what I'm going to ask you to think about and respond to, I will put a little flip grid up, just like the introduction one, is I'll ask you to think about what the king is teaching Prince Jen and how the season being winter shows what his mood is like. Here we go. It snowed that night. By morning, black branches turned sparkling white. Bare hillsides were dazzlingly blanketed. Snow collected in dry, rocky valleys that now looked like so many gleaming lakes. The sky cleared to rich blue, dabbed here and there with pink. An orange sun floated low on the horizon, a landscape worthy of the painter Chen Cho. The prisoner of the king had spent the night crouched in a bush. He had not slept well. He had not, in fact, slept at all, except for the occasional moment when his head dropped and his chin rested on the wooden collar. The skin of his neck, where the collar gripped, had been torn in the course of his struggles. The blood had clotted or frozen. The collar fretted away the scabby crust biting into exposed flesh. The prisoner of the king ignored this discomfort. The animal panic of the day before had gone into its burrow. Having worn itself out, the prisoner of the king was reasonably calm. He had much to do. So, where it says the animal panic of the day before had gone into its burrow, it's comparing his feeling of panic with how an animal is frantic, running around, kind of like a mouse or another rodent. And then he's kind of exhausted himself, so he's gone back down in his burrow. So, that was, do you know what kind of figurative language? If you said metaphor, you're right. He crawled out. He could not stand upright. His spine and his knees seemed to have bent and frozen stiff. He limped from the woodlands and crossed snowy fields, trying to kick away the cramps in his legs. He bore northward, away from Chai Sang. Later in the morning, he struck what he was looking for, a fairly good road that would lead him in the general direction of Nang Pe. Remember, that's where he heard that voyaging moon was recently. He had given up the prospect of reaching Tien Quo. Not entirely given it up, it hung somewhere in the shadows of his mind. It simply no longer had any great importance. He concentrated on finding a flute girl and meantime getting free of the king. Country folk were on the road. Some trudged beside ox carts or pushed barrows. They were on their way to market in Chai Sang or some neighboring village. The bright morning had put them in good spirits. Children frolicked beside their elders, shouting and tossing snowballs. The sudden appearance of the prisoner caused uneasiness. The straggling procession of carts and barrows veered aside, giving him wide berth. Now, why do you think that they might not want to get close to Prince Jen while he's got this king on his neck? Think about that. Several of the folks stared curiously. Most kept their eyes fixed straight ahead. The prisoner of the king had given further thought to his condition. He accepted one fact. He had no means of breaking himself out of the collar. He must find means. The prisoner observed the passerby. He singled out a bluff, hardy-looking fellow who laughed and joked with his companions. The prisoner of the king approached him, making friendly gestures. The banter stopped. The man's friends, silent, glanced at each other and edged away. The prisoner asked for something to pry open the king. I can't do anything like that, the man retorted. I'll end up with one of those on my own neck. I'm sorry for you, but that's as far as it goes. Be on your way. The prisoner wondered if he should identify himself. He decided it would be useless. Instead, he repeated his request for tools. None here, the man said. Be off, I told you. You have an axe. The prisoner pointed at a heap of ottomans in the cart. There is no axe. I see one. Give it here. There is no axe. The man turned away. The prisoner followed, insistent. The man warned him to keep his distance. The prisoner pushed past him and tried to lay hands on the implement. Alarmed, the man cursed and shoved him aside. The prisoner was stubborn. He lunged toward the cart, swinging the edge of his collar against the man, who was now frightened. He stepped ahead of the prisoner and seized an ox goad. He brandished the iron-tipped pole. Enough of that! Get away! The prisoner would not be denied. He started once more for the cart. The man struck him with the ox goad. The prisoner reeled back, regained his balance, and tried to snatch the pole. The man understood that he was dealing with a dangerous criminal. He brought an ox goad down on the prisoner's head. The prisoner fell. The man pondered whether to strike again. He judged it unnecessary. He set off with his cart as quickly as the ox could go. The prisoner had been thoroughly stunned by the time he got his wits back. The country folk were too far down the road to be overtaken. He started north again. He did not feel kindly disposed toward those folk. He halted by the roadside. Someone had set a pile of broken victuals. The prisoner flung himself on the bits of food. So you can use context clues there. If you didn't know what broken victuals meant, the author told us in the next sentence that he flung himself on the bits of food. So that helped me know that victuals were food. He could not put them in his mouth. On all fours, he devoured them where they lay. At this point, the prisoner had warned the king less than 2 days. It snowed often that winter. Bad weather forced the prisoner to go at a snail's pace. Now, if the prisoner is moving at a snail's pace, that's also figurative language. So it's comparing, but did it use the word like or as when it said bad weather forced the prisoner to go at a snail's pace? Nope, it didn't use like or as, so it is a... If you said metaphor again, you are correct. Sometimes he lost his bearings amid the whirlwind of white flakes. Once, in the weeks that followed, he went in a large circle, ending where he had begun. The king did not speak to him again. It was nevertheless an excellent teacher, stern and demanding, but always fair. As long as the prisoner did what the king required, they got on well enough. The king taught him many useful things: how to lap water like an animal, how to sleep sitting up, how to walk half bent. The prisoner found a staff to help him do so. The king also taught him to avoid towns and villages when possible, to enter them only if absolutely necessary. The prisoner was not welcome there. His presence made the inhabitants uncomfortable, and they sometimes drove him off with sticks. So the king taught him to shelter in peasants' outbuildings and to be quiet about it and not approach the dwellings. With the same instinct that told them a fox or a wolf roamed their fields, the farm folk knew he was there. Some chased him away, but most ignored his presence. As often as not, they set out food for him. The king taught him to crouch over it and gulp it down before other creatures snatched it from him. The king rewarded him for learning such lessons. It granted him marvelous dreams. Asleep, the prisoner was deliriously happy, his dreams so bright, so real that he often was confused when he woke up. He could not be certain whether he was a prisoner dreaming of happiness or a happy man dreaming he was a prisoner. Someone had once told him something like that. He could not remember who or when. The king rewarded him as well by allowing him to lose track of time. The prisoner at first counted the days. So many accumulated that they had become as heavy as the wooden collar. The king permitted him to forget such details. It was either dark or light, snowing or not snowing. He had either eaten or he had not. This relieved him of painfully calculating how long he had been on the roads. One day he grew vaguely aware of a greenish cast to the landscape. Is the season changing, possibly? A green thickening among trees and hedges, rain instead of snow, mud instead of frozen turf. This pleased him. The sun had grown noticeably warmer by the time he reached Nangpe. He had been ill and feverish, but his spirits lifted and he felt a joyful excitement, until now confined to his dreams. He made his way cautiously into the town, to the thieves' and beggars' quarter, which the king had taught him to sniff out unerringly. He singled out a possible source of information, a street urchin, a ragged boy with a shrewd look on his narrow face. So when they use the word street urchin, they're comparing to someone poor who lives on the streets with an urchin who lives in the sea that kind of lives off of other things that pass by and kind of grab them, just like someone who's poor on the streets might grab for food or try to get handouts. The prisoner beckoned. The boy staggered over, grinning, studying the collar around the prisoner's neck, as if he himself expected to wear one some day, and wished a close look at what lay in store. The prisoners inquired if he knew of a certain flute girl, a performer at the theater. Who doesn't? The boy put his hands on his hips. Lady's shadow behind a screen. The prisoner did not recognize that name. From the boy's added description, he knew who it must be. He asked how to send her a message. You and 100 others, the boy chuckled, can't be done. The prisoner replied that it must be done. Can't, the urchin repeated. One good reason, she's gone. That's right. In a great carriage. We line the streets to wave. We are sorry to see her go. Where? No idea. North? South? East? West? It would have to be one of them, wouldn't it? Here now, old uncle, the boy added, rapping sharply on the front of the king. Don't go to sleep. The prisoner had not gone to sleep. He had merely shut his eyes and let his head drop forward. He could barely observe what the urchin told him. The boy waited a few moments. The prisoner did not move. The boy wondered if he had died. He shrugged and went off whistling down the street. The prisoner dimly understood he would have to think what next to do. To begin, he must leave Nangpe. He hoped some thoughts would come to him by the time he reached the outskirts. None did. He sat down by the roadside. A strange new creature had roused in his head. He glimpsed it lurking in the shadows. Children played nearby, splashing in the puddles. They sidled up to the prisoner. He wished to tell them that their parents would be distressed and angry to see them loitering around him. But his tongue had grown thick and unmanageable. He could not shape his words. He gestured them away. The children were not afraid. They observed him with interest. One cheerfully asked what crime he had committed. A girl held up the rice cake she had been munching. Did he want it? She stepped closer and put the cake into his mouth, grinning proudly as if she had just dared something highly dangerous. Since the prisoner sat motionless and showed no sign of doing anything exciting, the children grew bored and drifted away. The prisoner actually was very busy with the new animal. It was not panic, not love, fear, anger, hatred, or anything he had known. It had sharp claws and sharp teeth. The prisoner had developed a raging thirst. Leaving the beast crouching in his mind, he lurched to one of the puddles and bent over it. He did not drink. A face stared up at him. His hair was long and matted, the nose and brow almost black, the skin flaked and peeling. It reminded him of someone. He racked his memory. Finally, it struck him. "Where have you been?" he cried. "Master Shu?" He reached out to embrace the old man. The animal, despair, took advantage of this moment of inattention. It leaped and sank its teeth. So why might he have been feeling despair at this point in time? He just bent over a puddle and saw his reflection, thought it was one of the old men from the past. Was it really one of the old men, or was it his own reflection? How do you think he felt when he saw how he looked? Must a journey that began so brightly come to such an end? Jen has lost hope. Will he survive without it? For the answer, turn to the next chapter. We'll post another one next time. Hope you enjoyed my entertaining little rascal and my cat that you probably saw. That was Maple. And we'll pop on and do some more stories from Remarkable Journey of Prince Jen. Stay healthy, exercise your brain, and I will see you soon. Bye.